4.7, the quadratic formula. In today's learning goals, students will be able to solve quadratic functions using the quadratic formula, and they will be able to determine the number of solutions using the discriminant. The quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So a lot of people just think that the 2a is only being divided by the radical. It's actually being divided by everything that's in the numerator. Let's look at our first example, x squared plus 4x equals 12. So your first step is going to get this in standard form. So I need to subtract the 12 to the other side. And now I can use my quadratic formula. So a is positive 1, b is 4, and c is negative 12. So x equals negative b, so negative 4, plus or minus b squared, so 4 squared, minus 4 times 1 times c, which is negative 12, divided by 2 times a, which is 1. So you have to make sure that you show me the setup, and then after that, if you can go straight to the final answer, that's fine with me, but definitely show me that you know how to plug in all of your values. So I'm going to start simplifying, so I'm going to bring down my negative 4, the plus or minus sign. 4 squared is 16, and then negative 4 times positive 1 times negative 12 gives me positive 48. And then 2 times 1, which is 2. So I'm now going to combine like terms. 16 plus 48 gives me 64. The square root of 64 is 8. And now I need to find out what my two answers are. So my first x is going to be negative 4 plus 8 divided by 2. My second answer is going to be negative 4 minus 8 divided by 2. So negative 4 plus 8 gives me 4, and 4 divided by 2 gives me that x equals positive 2. And then negative 4 minus 8 gives me negative 12. Divide by 2 and you get negative 6. So your two answers are x equals 2 and x equals negative 6. Press pause, and I want you to solve x squared plus 4x minus 3 using the quadratic formula. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus 4 squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. Okay, now let's go on simplifying. X equals negative 4 plus or minus 16, and then negative 4 times 1 times negative 3 gives me positive 12 divided by 2. Let's combine like terms. Negative 4 plus or minus, and then 16 plus 12 gives me the square root of 28 over 2. So now I can't take the square root of 28 and get a nice number, so you either need to do your factor tree or you need to find the perfect square that multiplies to another number. So that's 14 and 2, and the 14 breaks down into 7 and 2, and 2 is what you are going to circle, so that 2 is going to come out front. The 7 is going to stay underneath. Now we need to check to see if we can simplify this. Negative 4 divided by 2 gives me negative 2. And then remember, you have to divide all of this, so those 2's are going to cancel out and you're left with plus or minus the square root of 7, and those are your two answers using your quadratic formula. The discriminant we are going to use to tell us the number of solutions each quadratic equation has, and the discriminant is what is going to be under the radical from the quadratic formula. So the discriminant is just the b squared minus 4ac. So if the discriminant b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, so it's a positive number, that means there are going to be two real solutions. If you were to look at that on a graph, that would mean that your parabola goes through your x-axis twice, which means it's going to have two x-intercepts. It doesn't matter whether your parabolas are pointing up or they're pointing down. So now if my discriminant b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, that means it's going to have one real solution. And if you were to draw that on a graph, that looks like your parabola just touching your x-axis and coming back up. Or it could be down, touching your x-axis. Okay, it's actually touching there. And then coming back down. And lastly, your discriminant b squared minus 4ac. If it's less than 0, that means there is no real solutions. And it actually means that there are two imaginary solutions. And we will talk more about that later, but right now all what you need to know is that they're not real. They're two unreal solutions. And if you were to look at that on a graph, your parabola would be above your x-axis, somewhere where it was never going to touch, or below your x-axis, somewhere it was never going to touch. Now we are going to use the discriminant to determine the number of real solutions we have. So your first step is going to be to make sure that it's in standard form, which it is. Remember, a is in front of x squared, b is in front of x, and c is all by itself. So the discriminant b squared minus 4 times a times c. Okay? So negative 3 squared gives me positive 9. And then negative 4 times 2 times 7 gives me negative 56. 9 minus 56 gives me negative 47. And since that is less than 0, there are no real solutions. Press pause and use the discriminant to determine the number of real solutions. So first thing you should notice is that it's not in standard form, so I am going to move the 6x and the 5 to the other side. I don't ever want to make my x squared term negative, so that's why I moved everything else. So b squared, so negative 6 squared minus 4 times a times c, which is negative 5. If you did not put the parentheses around the negative 6 squared, you wouldn't get the right answer, so make sure you have that there. Negative 6 squared is 36, and then negative 4 times 1 times negative 5 gives me positive 20, and 36 plus 20 gives me 56. So since 56 is greater than 1, there are two real solutions. So since there are two real solutions, that means your parabola goes through your x-axis twice, which also means that you have two x-intercepts. So if any of the questions were asking for how many real solutions or how many x-intercepts, you would be using the discriminant to determine that.